Alrighty, guys, welcome back to another episode of League of Inches podcast. Myself and Jesse along, we were supposed to be here with Trav, but we're in the sort of southeast Queensland region, both me and Trav, and he has been smashed by the storms of this Wednesday night. Obviously, those around the Queensland area, hope you're all doing it, being safe. Hopefully, it hasn't affected you all too much when you are listening to this one. And pretty massive storms, some pretty craziness, and he's completely lost his internet. So unfortunately, we'll be doing this without him, but might be fortunately in a way because we don't have to listen to his rant sometimes. So actually, he was pretty keen to come on for this one, I believe. And this first sort of talking point we're going to discuss, he had a few really good points to say. So Trav, we were going to miss you tonight, but in our back of our minds, we'll just sort of imagine you coming in with a little bit of debate here and there. But Jesse, mate, it's been we weren't on love obviously last week. Unfortunately, sickness got me, got the captain. But how you been? How's the last week or so been?
Yeah, been pretty good, man. Sickness has sort of come through the household actually a little bit too. My wife's a bit crook, but I always managed to avoid it, luckily. But no, the week's been
Touch
all
wood.
right, just busy, working. It bucketed down actually here today earlier too. But it's sort of passed now, so I think it must have just kept heading up. But yeah, I saw what was going on up your way, and it looks rough as. But
Yeah.
yeah, we only ever get blips of it down this end. Unfortunately, it doesn't really ever. Well, it's not too bad, but I've sort of got a mad flood zone at the front of my house, so when it does, even just a not a light drizzle, but something half decent, the bridge out the front of my house always floods. So got away with that one. Didn't have to worry too much. But yeah,
Yeah.
crazy weather.
Watching the radar, there was that big dreaded red clouds and that around, and you know what that means. So,
Yeah.
copped a fair bit. I shit myself because I am petrified of storms. A fun fact about me, and probably my biggest fear, to be 100% honest with everyone. I put the headphones in, I get music cranking. I hate
Wild.
the loud, the cracks and stuff like that. So, message me actually. Message the page if you're the same. I've not met anyone else like this so far, and my
I love
partner
it.
laughs at me all the time. And
Yeah.
it just pays me out about it because as soon as I hear something, I've got to run in, get my headphones, and I zone out until the storm's passed. It's not good. I'm in freak out mode. So
I've
I'm
met
glad
dogs
it's
that do
over.
that, but
Well,
not to
maybe I'm
that
a dog.
extent. Maybe
Maybe I'm
you
a
are a
big
bit.
dog.
Oh,
So who? Anyway, let's have a bit of a chat about what's been going on this week. Everyone knows sort of what we've been doing now. I don't have to explain it anymore. But obviously, this one has been shut down now by the NRL, so that is all good. But we will have a bit of a chat about it still and have a bit of a debate regarding, because to me, it does seem like eventually, whether it's next season, whether it's 2 or 3 years away, this is going to come into effect. I felt like this was like a strategic get it out in the media, let people discuss it. Here's some feedback, which 85-90% was basically negative, and then we'll go from there and see what happens. So obviously, we're talking about the rule change, and I put up on the page, and there was a lot of talk around it. The kickoff, if it goes, I think it's past the. If it's not basically a short kickoff, it's going to be a 7 tackle set. If it's a short kickoff, obviously you get a good chance of getting the ball back, and it avoids that collision which they're trying to get. And apparently the figures of the last couple of years, it continues to go up. The head knock and head injuries off a kickoff, the numbers for that continue to rise. So they're trying to eliminate that. The NRL has since come out and said, no, we will not be changing that rule. And I believe they're not doing any rule changes for next year as well, which is a good thing. I think we need to get back into, unless a rule is extremely affecting the game and needs to be changed, we need to keep going like 2, 3, 4 years without changing these rules. It felt like it got to the point we're changing a rule every year and a couple of those, and it sort of I felt like it affected the games in a way because it takes some teams then 4, 5, 6, even the officials that many weeks to get used to the game and how it's being played for that year. And it sort of affects the game. But Jesse, what were your thoughts around this one? We've got people fired up. Haven't actually heard your thoughts yet because we've been pretty busy actually. So I'm ready to hear what your thoughts are around this one.
I think you're right. I think it's inevitable, but I think it's stupid. I hate it. I hope they don't. I love that kickoff. I love that collision. That's the thing that cheese everyone up. The game starts, everyone belts each other. Like you want to see it, and especially after you've come off, like, I don't know, there's a bit of a scuff, and you want to get back into it. You just want to see those two blokes square up again. So like I'm all about it, but I like that sort of spectacle. But I think you're right. They've been changing the rules quite often. Like probably the last 3 years, I think they've done a change somewhere, and We can always blame the inefficiencies and inconsistencies as well of the referees, but like they're having to change rules at the same time too.
Mm.
They've been officiating for a long time, and all of a sudden, every year there's a change. There's a change. So there's teething problems. You know what I mean? Like you've got to get it back into the game, and now hopefully, without a change this year, um, there's a bit more consistency about everything. But it won't take much for him to change that. But I don't know. So it's got to go past the opposition's 20. Well, it can't go past the opposition's 20, otherwise it's a 7 tackle set. So I think Mika had the point as well in the chat where he was like, why can't teams just send it? Just send it as far as possible, concede the 7 tackles, in net win, you will still be ahead by meters instead of giving it to them in the 20. If you're going to go for it that way, just take the 7 tackle set, send it as far as possible. Hopefully, you don't concede as many meters on that first hit up. That's what I think is probably going to happen. But then I'd imagine there's going to be some like counter rule for that, and they're going to start getting binned or something if they keep doing it. Which I hope doesn't happen. But they'll find a way around it. Like there'll be a loophole, and I don't want to see short kickoffs every time. I hate them, especially
Mm.
every single set. Like
We're not
it's
rugby.
boring.
It's
No, I just don't want to see it. Like, okay, you put it up. Half the time they get it wrong anyway. Sometimes they get the ball back, and it's like, oh, cool. They're on it again. But most of the
yeah.
time, it doesn't end the way that they want it to end anyway. And then all of a sudden, like someone's conceding a penalty in the 20 meters, and you're like, well, this is stupid. You know what I mean? Like it just takes away from it. So I hope they don't. But I think they're just going to try and wrap everyone in a bit of cotton wool, going forward in the next couple of years, and all the good fun stuff will be taken out. So
Look, to make this a interesting podcast, I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say it needs to happen, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later, just in terms of protecting these players now, because they're getting bigger, they're getting faster. I heard people out there like your old sort of rusted on fans who personally I love yous. I love to keep listening to the podcast. I'm not paying you out. But it's like, oh, the game's going soft, blah, blah, blah. The game hasn't gone soft at all. Like the game for mine is the toughest it's ever been in a way, because look how big these people are now, and look how big these
mm,
players are. They're running into each other constantly. Um, I get the whole sentiment around the kickoff and what it feels like, and people going, "Oh, it's going to ruin Origin." I don't go. I actually don't buy into that. I don't think it will ruin anything at all, because we said that about the punch rule. We've said that about a couple of little changes that have happened over the time for the game, and the game continues to sort of evolve and be the product that it is today. For mine, it's the strongest the game's ever been, and that is now without the head high, like the sort of the punching. Obviously the foul play that we've got a lot stricter with, which is a good thing. And I feel like it hasn't impacted the game as such. Can this impact the game to a point where people switch off? I think initially, and the way people will come at it, they'll try and act like they'll switch off. But there's no way. I don't think a single fan of the game will switch off because they get rid of the kickoff. And the way
I don't
that the
think so.
game is heading, and the game could get sued for millions. We've seen like obviously the Cooler incident in the finals against the Roosters, Jared Hargraves off the kickoff was a horrible look, and we don't want to see that look. And that was a poor technique in a way. He tripped up with a player as well, which he couldn't really help. And then we obviously seen the next tackle, which to counter that argument, and people will probably be screaming at their car, listen to this going, well, the next tackle, Jake had the same thing, Jake Trbojevic, and got a concussion off just a normal play the ball. And that's fine. They're the ones
Mm,
that's going to continue to happen. It's a contact sport. But I think what the game wants to try and eradicate and minimize as much as possible are those really long ones, like 40, 50 meters out, where it's just a bloke running into 4 or 5 guys that want to kill him and take his head off and effectively do some serious damage to him moving forward into his later years. So it's a weird one, because I
mm,
love the kickoff, but I know that games getting into a space now which we've never gotten into before. And people talk
yeah.
about the NFL, they're already into those sorts of regions. We're following it. We're a few years behind, it seems, constantly, but the game's got to get there because they've got to cover their asses in a way.
What are the numbers around the amount of concussions that come off kickoffs? And is it so substantial where they have to eradicate it? I suppose
I
you made the point, like you got 40, 50 meter run up running into 5 guys. Like I suppose that in itself has an element of risk.
mm,
Probably more than it needs to have, to be fair. But it's, again, I'll say it's part of the game. Like
yeah.
it's part of the game. They're not out there, in ballet shoes. Like, it's a contact sport. People go out there and they know what to expect, especially the players. They know they're going to get hurt sometimes, man. It's the sort of what they go into it expecting. And I suppose, the NRL's got to do their part of it, where they've got to make it safe for their players, their employees, essentially. You know what I mean? Workplace, work cover sort of stuff. But yeah, like, I understand why, and I honestly, and I wouldn't. It wouldn't shock me if it wasn't this season, it was next, and they sort of just dip their toes in just to gauge, the feel, and it might even start putting it in the team's mind where they're saying, "Look, this is probably going to go soon. Let's try and work something else out in the meantime while we have the next 12 months to sort of, change the plan around it." But um, I don't know, man. Like, I see these things, and you see the players come out of it, and honestly, I can't recall more than maybe 5 times where someone's been knocked out cold from a kickoff run off the top of my head at all. And that's not just last season, that's like going back too. So I don't know if it has as much pull as a normal sort of tackle would, where, something can happen and anyone can go down, or they trip and someone cops a hip to the head. Like, that's way more
Yeah,
common, but you can't stop that.
yeah,
But I think if they just want to eliminate the potential risk of someone getting hurt, then you have to draw the line somewhere. And I think there is potential risk in every tackle that someone's going to get hurt. It's a tackle. Like, you got two bodies running into each other. People are going to get hurt. It's the way it is. But again, yeah, the risk would be higher, I can imagine, from that sort of straight up button heads kind of thing. But I don't want to see it go. But yeah, won't shock
yeah.
me.
It's a
Mm.
weird, like, and in a way, is a 7 tackle set really a deterrent if they want to
No,
stop this? Because I
they do
don't
it
think it
intentionally.
really is. Like, it's going to be a team that's fresh. Like, we when you see it off the tap, like if the ball goes dead, it's because it's sort of an uneven line, and they do get an advantage from that because there's straight away momentum. Where this one will be off a kickoff. If they catch the ball, they get the hit up. Like, this defensive lineup is just ready to rip and tear and smash them still. So
Mm.
I don't think you're going to see him march down the field like we normally do when there is the ball goes dead behind the post and things like that. It'll be a much more controlled in a way set that's just a sort of a stock standard set as well. So I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to deter teams from doing it because it's not always a guarantee you're going to get the ball back either from a short kickoff. And if you don't get it
Mm.
back, then that attacking team's already almost on the halfway line, and
Yeah.
they've got a full set of six to attack from. So
Exactly.
again, like I understand what the NRL is doing, and I know that they've got to cover their asses, and it's going to get like I think whether we like it or not, within the next probably 5 years, we will get to a point where, as much as it is a contact sport, a lot of these real big sort of HIA impacting moves, I guess to call it, will be eliminated. It'll just have to be because the NFL, those sorts of sports seem like they're getting more and more strict with it. They're training in that. It's now almost like a touch football environment. They're training. They're not doing much contact at all. If anything, they're getting very much looked after, and there's always videos. There's everything there. So the NRL will be pretty much mirroring, I reckon, what the NFL is doing. So watch whatever they're doing at the moment, we will basically be doing within the next couple of years as well, I feel like, because
Mm.
unfortunately, or I guess it's not unfortunately, because I guess fortunately they're going to look after the players' best interest as well. And I'm sure there's lots of mums out there, there's parents, there's kids that want their father to be able to function in a normal humanly bodily sort of way when he's 60, 50, 60, 70 years old. Like, we don't want to see, as we've seen with some of the older past players, where they're almost like vegetables in a way. Like, no disrespect, but it's unfortunate the game has just destroyed
Mm.
him, and it
Yeah,
hurts
man.
you to see. So I guess this is the way of the NRL, and they'd get bagged out no matter what way they go about this. But yeah, when I feel like when I sit back and think about it more, I feel like the game's up against it whether they do or they don't. Like, it's a weird one. But anyway,
Yeah. It's hard, man. Like, this whole CTE thing, and like, I don't watch a lot of NFL. Like, I'd have to let Trav sort of
yeah,
have his input when it comes to this. But the players will have a false sense of security when they're wearing headgear and protective shoulder padding and stuff. They think they're bulletproof. You think about it, like, I'm going to go in with my head. It's not going to get hurt. And they're the ones that get rattled about it a lot. And that's why the CTE stuff with that sport is massive. Like, you
yeah,
brace yourself in the NRL. You go into contact braced, body to body. You know what I mean? Like, it's different. It's very different. Um, where they're in a shell, and the shell is going to take the contact, and they're just going to bounce around in it, and they're just going to knock their head about. And like, it's nuts, man. You see mid 20s, 30-year-olds that are straight up suffering. Like, their brains are grey matter. Like, there's nothing left of them. And I don't think, well, to be fair, it depends on the numbers, but hypothetically, I just don't know. Like, I don't know the stats for it, but I don't think we're at that sort of level that the NFL would be like because of how the players run out and how the players go into contact. So
Yeah.
I understand, you've got to keep the risk away, but at the same time, like we're doing okay for it. Like, yeah, there's longevity with players, man. Like there's a fair few that have been playing deep into their later years and they're still getting around. A lot of them go to the panels afterwards. Like freaking James Graham's on there all the time and he was belted around half more than anyone that you'd see on the field. So yeah, there are some that have obviously copped it. Unfortunately, I think you're going back quite a way too. But yeah, it's one of those things where the way that the game's going, there's no way around it. Like it's going to happen,
Yeah.
and you're gonna please the people that want change, and you're gonna piss the people that don't off. There's just got to be a middle ground. It's like I reckon it'll be a new game in 5 years. I don't think it's even going to
Yeah.
be the NRL anymore.
Yeah.
Not
I feel
anything
like
we recognise.
I feel like you're spot on with that. And look, again, I reckon there'll be people out there that will whinge and complain and go, "Oh, I'm not going to watch this game. It's going to not be anything like what I watched when I was growing up." Blah blah blah. But like, come on, let's be serious. You'll still watch the game, and you'll look in the diaries. You'll see when your team's on. You'll be flicking on. You'll be watching. You get just as involved. And one little rule, like I said, the punching was outlawed. Everyone was up in arms, going, "You've killed the game." Blah blah blah. But the game just continues to get stronger in my eyes. So I don't think there will be much backlash in terms of losing viewers and things like that. Onto
Yeah.
the signing side of things, obviously that's a big part of what we talk about as well with these ones. The first one, I guess Gutho, the King, has officially joined the Dragons. We didn't get to do one of these last week as well, so we'll talk about this now. And we've obviously talked about this when it was rumored, and we sort of put together some things here and there, but feels like we've got a lot more closure now in terms of his position, what he's going to the club for, how it impacts, I guess, the club. Where are you at, Jesse? What do you think his position will be for 2025? And the impression, or I remember you saying you weren't that hyped about the signing a couple of weeks ago. You were a bit confused with the Dragons and why they were making it. And I agree in a way, but have you either changed that thinking? You're still a little bit up in the air about it?
I wouldn't say I've changed the thought, to be honest with you. I still feel like it is a bit of an odd one, but again, it's kind of what the Dragons need, and that's where I'm like, it makes sense to them. It makes sense entirely to them. It sort of doesn't make sense to me why the Eels just wouldn't give him one more year, considering what it would have meant for everyone in the club. One more year. You can still go to the Dragons after that. Give him his 10 years. Let him get 100 tries for the club. Like there's so many milestones that he's missed. Say goodbye to the fans, you know what I mean? Like there's so much there for it. So like I don't know. Obviously they had their reasons for it and so did he and they parted on good terms, which is great. It is because he's been a legend for the Eels in general. But um yeah, I think the Dragons are obviously going to do better than what they've got with him. And I don't think that's anyone's really making that argument that he's not going to be an improvement in the position. I don't know physically how well he's going to fare up against, any of the ones coming through. But again, it's what, 2 years? He'll get
Three.
a bit of a 3 years. Okay. So we'll see what that last year even entails for him. But yeah, I don't know. It's good. Like it's good. It's not bad.
You got him
I'm very
fullback?
impartial to it. Hey?
You got him playing fullback?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I don't think he plays anywhere else, to be honest. It depends. Like if Hunt leaves, then like, are you going to put him into the halves
He's gone.
as a
Hunt's done.
as a
He's
5'8"?
been sacked.
He's
So
gone.
he's
So it's
gone.
like, I don't know.
Parted ways.
There's a bit of a change up though, and
Sloan,
I just don't think yeah, I just don't think he can take the position in the halves considering he's not been there before and you've just got rid of your halfback. So if Hunt stayed, maybe there's a chance that they, play around with him in the 5'8" spot, but then Flanagan's there. Is he going to change that too much? They need a better fullback. It's black and white. I think they've been crying for a fullback before Dufty. So um, there he is. You know what I mean? You've got him for a few years. There's your fullback. Don't overthink it. Like there's no point reinventing the wheel and playing him as a halfback. Just playing where he knows and where he'll be good.
yeah,
Because their defensive fullback, they've not had one. They're defensively lacking. Their fullback's been nowhere for years, and in comes Gutho. So if he can stay fit, he can sort his knees out and that kind of stuff. And obviously he would have lost his pace, but positionally, I think he's one of the best in there. So um, yeah, it's definitely an improvement for what they need in the position. But in general, I think they probably could have done more with it, maybe with someone else long term.
yeah. I think he'll be fullback. I think Sloan will go to the wing as well. And Sloan can learn a couple of things off him. I think Sloan needs to go to Super League, to be honest with you, and I just think he would tear that competition up. It suits his game down to a T, and he'd get his confidence back. He'd get a bit of an aura about him. He just seems to be that kid or that bloke that's just out there playing because it's his job, and he's just I want to see him enjoy his football again. It just seems like he's constantly getting bashed, and fair enough, I guess, in a way, because if I'm being brutally honest, he has not impressed me at all at his time at the club playing fullback. I don't know. It's an odd one. Obviously, now a
Mm,
lot more pressure in attack as well, with no Hunt and no Lomax, who has been probably their two biggest pieces of attacking weapons for 2 to 3 years at that club. Like it's going to be a weird year next year, not having those two there to Hunt to first of all set the try up, and then Lomax to get the try. So
yeah,
that's interesting. The
that's
Gutho one,
probably mm, that's probably like 70% of their tries last season too.
yeah,
It's a lot to
that's the
lose.
thing.
Yeah.
And there's no one on the market at the moment. Like in terms of halves and stuff, there's just nothing happening. And 12 months ago, Flanagan couldn't get a look in at a depleted dog side and things like that. And he's turned it around. I know the last season under his dad, and I'll give him credit. He played well, but is he up now to that standard of doing it by himself? Like he's going to have
Mm,
probably an inexperienced 5'8" next to him now. He's going to be playing with the 7 on his back again, and that
mm,
seems to have been a bit of a curse for him in a way. The last probably majority of his career so far. As soon as he sort of started to get treated a bit badly by the Roosters and uses that sort of scapegoat figure, it
yeah.
sort of just has absolutely knocked him around. So it'd be interesting what happens. I hope for his sake he takes this on and he can lead this team around the park, because there's a decent football side in there with some of these signings. But the gut on Gutho, I don't like the signing. I still don't like it. And I know Dragons fans are getting excited because of what Gutho brings to the club, and they definitely need him there. But Gutho, they're not getting prime Gutho.
No.
Let's not beat around the bush. They're getting a Gutho that has basically destroyed his body for the Eels. Like there is no doubt in my mind he is 80% of the player that he has been at his sort of peak, where we were getting the Gutherino and that sort of Gutho. And he's still a good footballer, don't get me wrong. He's not a 3-year fullback, and that's the
No.
danger signs there, that I feel like the Dragons have got him on for that sort of money. They're going to lock that in for 3 years. My bold prediction out of this, I don't think Gutho will last 3 years. That's
No.
my big worry for the Dragons. And they've got
Me
now
too.
Cook, they've got Val Holmes, and they've got Gutho, 3 of the guys that are sort of getting older. I know Val not quite there yet, I guess, but his form wasn't great this year, which is fair. But who knows? As I said, on paper, there's a team there. I just don't know if the pieces of the puzzle we put together the right way, and if Gutho will help him answer a lot of those pending questions they've got.
Yeah, I don't think he makes 3 years. That's why I thought it was a 2-year contract. I thought 2 years would be
Yeah,
fair for both him and the club. It makes sense. 3 years is a bit much. Whether that last year, he's really taken a step back out of it, we'll have to see. I just don't think he can hold up. I'd be surprised if he, plays a full season this year coming. So, um, but yeah, I think the fullback thing's right for him. I really just want to see how it plays out. But they're signing an aging side. Like they're signing
mm,
experience and they're signing knowledge and maybe mentorship for the younger players coming up through the ranks, because there is a lot of young players at the Dragons and a lot of
yeah,
inexperienced sort of things. No one they can really rely on or go to on that side. So just the presence, dressing room stuff, training, it's going to be good for everyone there. So like I get it, 100% I get it. Get these guys in for a couple of years, build the crew up, and then they'll finish and they'll retire. But then it's going to put them in another position 3 years time. Like it's not long term. That's quite short term. They're going to be planning for what to do after these three are gone. Well, admittedly, Val Holmes will be there longer than the other two. Cook and Gutherson will be gone at the same time, I think.
yeah,
So, um, yeah, there's going to have to be some pretty clever recruitment in the next 2 years for them to not die off pretty quickly and undo all the work they're going to be doing in the next 2-3 years now. So
yeah.
Dragons things.
For the Bulldogs, Inari Tuala from the Newcastle Knights has signed with the Dogs for next year. So an outside back. They've obviously lost Josh Adokar, who they sacked and Drow Skelton, who has gone to the West Tigers, who I still say they would be kicking themselves
Missed it.
now after what has happened and
Yeah.
unfolded. They had one of the best replacements possible in Skelton, and he's walked out the door, obviously, at the time, thinking he didn't have a first grade position there. So I think Blake Wilson will still get the first choice next year on that available wing spot. I think Tuala decent depth signing, but I don't
Mm.
see him starting and being that sort of Josh Adokar replacement. I think it will be Blake Wilson first, and if he is to get injured or a backline depth injury, he'll be there for depth in there. Can you see any other way, Jesse?
Not really, and I don't think it'll be him first up. I think it'll be Montoya next up. So
Oh yeah,
he's given
sorry,
up.
and
He's given up
Montoya as well.
sunny Newcastle for the glistening lights of Belmore. Like, what are you doing? And he wasn't getting much of a start. Oh, he was actually, to be fair, last season. He played a fair few games, but it was basically an injury
Yeah,
and rotation and stuff. And then even still, like when Sharp come through, he got flicked anyway. So he's got talent there, but he's down the pecking order no matter where he goes. So it is a weird one. It's definitely just a depth signing, probably just filling the holes that the good wingers accidentally left the Dogs for. Um,
100%.
but yeah, it'll just be one of those players that'll just probably feature here and there when players get injured. But they've got enough of him. He's obviously not unseating Karaz, and I think that was the side that Tuala plays on. So that's not going to happen outside Crichton if you can avoid that. And you got Wilson and Montoya on the other end. So I don't think you'll see a lot of him.
Yeah, no, I agree. Another signing that I just feel like is a very, very strange one. Jackson Paulo signs with the Cowboys, and this is his third or fourth club in the same number of years. He's been a
Journeyman.
big journeyman of the game. I understand why he's left Manly. They had a lot of backline options, so I think his time there, he wasn't really going to get a look in at all this for 2025. The weird one for mine is gone to a club who have probably some of the most exciting young backline talent that's in the game at the moment. And it's just a very strange, I guess, not just
Mm.
signing, but for him as a player and wanting to, I'm guessing he's moving because he wants to play first grade. I can't see him playing first grade at the Cowboys again, being first choice in that back line because I looked at the list. Like you've got Robert Derby, who's a good young up and coming winger. You've got Semi Valame, who obviously 2 years ago now
Mm.
or a season a bit ago was
Good.
absolutely killing it. And it's only because
Yeah.
how good Kyle Felt was this year that he didn't get a go again for that wing spot. But I have no doubt he'll be there again and getting that
Mhm.
first spot this year. You've got Duffy, you've got Tom Chester, and you've got Zach Labour, who was absolutely freaky to start the season as well before he got that unfortunate injury. So there's huge raps on Tom Dearden. Sorry, not Tom Dearden. Tom Chester.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be
Quite good.
a really good football player.
Yeah.
It's just a very odd choice
Yeah.
to go to, I guess.
It is, but they are losing Felt and Holmes. So you got to think you've got Murray Talangi's locked that wing down. He's an absolute gun on the left. He's
Yeah,
not going anywhere. He's rock solid. But then they got to fill a center inside him. So you're going to put Semi Velame inside him, probably. Makes sense. Center before. Um, and
I'd go
then
Valame wing.
you go Velame on the wing.
I'd go
That's
Valame
fine.
wing, and I'd go Laybut and
Well, Labar's got to come
probably
through at center as well.
Chester probably as your centers.
Chester wouldn't be a center. I can't see Chester being a center. He's a fullback. Like
Yeah,
he's
he's
too
not going to get a
small,
spot
man.
there
He won't
with
get a
drinking.
spot. And that's the thing. Like, you only ever really saw him when random players here and there went injured. But the thing with Peyton is he'll play him at lock if he has to.
Yeah,
So it doesn't matter. Like players will get their spot. I see him starting. He's played for some good clubs, man. Like he's not a bad player. He just gets punted around. He's no one. I don't know. There
yeah,
must be some reason for it because the Roosters didn't want him. The Rabbitohs didn't want him. He's obviously left Manly.
yeah,
Like they're not dreg clubs. He's not like getting flicked around the bottom end. Like he's playing for for the Rabbits, yes, but he's played for some good clubs with some good players, and not done bad. Like at the Roosters, he did some good things, like relatively good things anyway. And I thought, he's all right. He's got potential there. they could do with it. So I think he starts. Honestly, I do. I think with the depth they've got, it depends. Like he's got more experience than half the guys that you rattled off just then. So it'll probably be him and Tulagi on the wings, Laybut and Velame in the
Yeah.
centres, or Braden
You got
Burns too.
Valia as well.
Yeah, yeah, true. So there is
Valia is
another
still
one.
there, and
Yeah,
he's got another year. And
but
he was playing regular there towards the back end of the season. So that's one thing Todd Payton will have. He'll actually have some decent options this year. And I guess a lot of those are young. And just looking at it there, their contract statuses, a lot of those players actually are only up until the end of next season. So they can talk at the moment and sign with other clubs. So I think it's a big year for those sorts of players like your Chesters, your Laybuts, your Derbies, because they've had some raps about him now for a while. They're
yeah,
now going to be expected to play week in, week out sort of league against men and consistent sort of football. At least two of those three, I reckon, will have to. So it'd be interesting to see if they can handle it, first of all. I think Laybut's the standout, in my opinion. I think he's going to be an absolute freak. So
yeah. So
I'm
keen
really
for him.
keen to see him there. And as you said, like Tommy Chester as well is a really, really good player, but just about where he can play. It's sort of,
Mm.
I don't know. It's
Quite small
where
bodied
he,
too.
yeah,
Overall,
where he
like,
fits.
yeah, I don't know. It'll be very
Maybe
interesting. I don't think
maybe a
they can
5'8"
replace.
option.
Yeah, over Dearden?
I'd be
No
moving
chance.
Dearden to halfback maybe, and then putting him at 5'8". I think Dearden's going to have complete control of this football team next year, and
Yeah.
just
Well,
put the 7 on him.
who have they
We
got
got
to replace Townsend?
Clifford as
Clifford.
well.
Yeah, okay. So they've got options. Um, Man, I don't know. I just think like Kyle Felt was huge for them this season, and he has been prolific for the Cowboys forever. Like I don't really know when he was ever shit in a year. Like he's always been able to put up like minimum 15 tries. Um, and then Val Holmes, like there's some big players to lose. So I don't feel like they're filling the void in by getting Jackson Paulo, but it's very hard to find anyone to sort of replace him after the amount of time that Felt spent at the club doing what he was doing. So um, yeah, like look, Clifford and Dearden are probably good settled in the halves together. I don't know if it's worth changing too much to accommodate Chester if you don't really have many other options
Yeah,
at fullback anyway. Um, I just sort of think it might just be like it's almost like a 1-for-1 in a way with Paulo to Felt. And then I think they just have to work out what they do in the centres. But again, it is a bit of an unusual one for them, isn't it? Like it's just random. Like you just wouldn't expect to see.
it's one thing for sure, and I don't want to promote ourselves too much, but I'll tell you what, look forward to talking, I guess, the review sort of stuff, because Cowboys are a team where there's going to be plenty of options. There's plenty of um, positions out there to talk about. So
Cheap.
whether it's the NRL side of things or Supercoach as well, it's going to be really cool to talk about them as a team, probably at the start of January, and work out sort of what's going to happen here. Because yeah, that's definitely one to look at in an interesting way of seeing how they end up, I guess, lining up and how people sort of see them there. Your team, the Sydney Roosters, look out, are still in and around the news. Everyone's waiting for them to make some of these signings that we anticipate them to do. They seem to still have money just coming out of where. Ben Hunt apparently rumored to be in talks with the Roosters now.
Mm,
We always knew this was going to happen. I'm surprised it's taken this long to actually come out
pretty much.
as official, sort of, I guess. Where would he fit?
Halfback.
I know
Because you just signed Sam Walker. Like they got no
Sam
Kiri.
Walker.
Sam Walker plays 5'8". And he played. You know what? The two of them, the way that Sam Walker plays with Hunt next to him, come on, it would be good. It would be good, even if it was for 1-2 years. And I suppose that's pretty much how long Walker signed for, isn't it? 2 years.
Yeah, I'll give you something.
I don't
I'll give
know.
you
I
another.
don't want
I
it to
think
happen. I just want him to keep the 7, keep the keys, let him be the future. But
I think
yeah,
Hooker.
Hooker. Yeah. See, I was thinking that too because
You
Cheese
got
is probably going to go.
Townsend as well. You got Townsend. You may as well use him.
Well, I'd rather not. Um, yeah, I thought about the hooker thing too, because obviously there's all this talk about where Cheese is going this season, and Watson's there, but is he a better lock? Is he a better 14? What do you sort of do with him? You can play him anywhere as well. He can play in the 9 if he has to. I think he would be really good as a long-term 9 if he had to be as well. But Yeah, like there's options. There's options. If they actually do start to humor the idea and go for Hunt, um, I think they could realistically play him as a half with Walker as a 5'8". They could play him as a 9 too. Like they've got possibilities there for him. And if it's signed, then 100%, like I can actually make sense of it. I'm like, they will utilize him. I think he'll do better for the Roosters than he done at the Dragons, just with a better side around him. Wouldn't have to do so much. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to lose sleep. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's an odd one. I think obviously to start the year, he'll probably be at the halfback if he does sign with the Roosters, while Sam Walker comes back probably midway through the year.
yeah,
By all reports, Brandon Smith is on the outer for sure there at that club, and I don't think he'll have a future there. Whether they release him early and a club picks him up to take on the injury bill, I guess in a way, because he won't be back for until halfway through the year as well. But I then think once Sam Walker's back, if Hunt's there, he moves into sort of that hooker role. And I don't think that would be a bad thing, especially the modern day, like
mm,
having Connor Watson into that middle sort of position as a lock. And Victor Radley, I think, did quite a good job on the edge at times towards the back end of the
yeah,
year. So I think that's a decent option. Sandon Smith will be the 5'8" and lock that sort of in. But again, he's got some off field stuff that he's sorting out at the moment as well. So we don't even know if he'll be there to start the year
mm,
next year. So maybe that's also a reason why the Roosters are having these talks with Ben Hunt. And we obviously can't comment too much about what's going on with Sandon Smith's situation. But if they're going to go into next year without Sandon Smith, Luke Keary, and Sam Walker,
gives us
obviously
room.
you need some people there. Like then all of a sudden, who would have thought even 2 or 3 months ago the Roosters start 2025 with Chad Townsend, Ben Hunt as your halves? Like
Wild.
it's
I know.
just
It's mental. Well,
that's
it's
that's
entirely possible, man. It's honestly, it's
yeah.
entirely possible. Now that you've sort of put it out there, it kind of does make sense for the Roosters, doesn't it? They're lacking a 7 and a 9 to start the year, and he can do both quite well. So it does make a lot of sense, and they probably get him on a cut price thing as well, considering he's not got long. And I don't know, could happen. Plenty of cash
That's
to
what I'm
burn.
here for. I'm here to talk sense and just to sort of yeah, just be that junior Buzz, I guess, in a
That's right.
way. Buzz, you're my
You're
icon.
a Cardinal.
You're my hero. Love you. Get on the show
Spot
if
on.
you can, please. Bring in the ratings. Obviously, the next big one to talk about, probably our last one, is the Braden Trindle was obviously rumored to be, if he got to that November 1 time, he would be one of the hottest property halves on the market. First of all, because a lot of the older halves will be retiring in the next year or two. Secondly, there's just not much on the market at the moment in terms of dominant halves that can control games. And we've sort of seen in the finals, at least that game that they did win in the second week of the finals, that he was able to produce that, and he was sensational. And obviously, he had that big incident midway through last year. I think he feels like he owes it to the Sharks in a way to be that loyal sort of guy for him. And I think this signing will be a very big weight lifted off the shoulders of Nico Hines. I think they sort of started to do it towards the back end when Hines did come back from injury. Fitzy's got to bite the bullet, have Trindle as your halfback, have Hines as your 5'8", and just run with that for the next 2, 3, 4 years. But then the other problem, and it feels like he's leaving to go to probably the Dragons, which is the heavy rumors. And then you got Atkinson, who I thought was sensational this
Mm,
year. Like, if you're looking at all
good.
three of those players year, I'm probably saying Atkinson was the best player for out of those three, just in terms of the whole year, because obviously Trindle had his time where he was out, had his sort of up and down games. Hines started the year really well, but then was out injured and just didn't really come back the same player at all. And Atkinson, whenever he was needed, he beat the Storm by himself. I still remember that
Mm,
game. Like, he was
yeah,
sensational.
huge.
So
Yeah.
it's an odd one. If I had the choice between Trindle or Atkinson, I would have been choosing Atkinson every day of the week. Like, that's where I was at. I know people are up in arms about his finals performance, but I look back at the whole year and I just thought Atkinson was my man.
Yeah, he was good, man. Atkinson was really
Yeah.
good. Look, I don't know. I really don't know what they do there because I really want Nico to do well at half, and I think he's been one of the best halves
Mm.
statistically in Supercoach anyway. As far as the rest of the game goes, he's been a gun, man. Nico Hines is a weapon. But he's a very emotional player, and he doesn't seem to come back from a slump quite well. Yeah, Trindle really took the reins at the end. He played halfback. He made Nico Hines second fiddle, and I don't know. I think long term, whether or not Nico goes to fullback and just does what he did at the Storm and just let Atkinson and Trindle kill it in the halves like they were when they were playing together anyway. Like there's combinations there, and I just don't know if they really gel individually together. Like we've seen Hines and Trindle just not do it. They just can't play together, especially if Hines is the halfback. They get in each other's way. It's very disjointed. It doesn't want to go left, right. It doesn't want to go right. It's just weird to watch, and you're thinking there's so much here. Like what is going on with these two, and why can't they just work it out? But they couldn't. It took a whole season, and it just didn't really happen. But then you put Atkinson in with either of them, and they play amazing. Like especially Trindle, to be fair, like he played better than Hines did for the majority of the season, barring the probably first third where Hines was a weapon. But uh, Atkinson's that guy. He's like the Sandon Smith for the Roosters. Like you put him in with whoever needs to complement, and he does his job well, and he really did. Atkinson was a gun there, so they will lose a good player if he does leave. And it just depends on where their priorities lie. I think really, I don't know how much longer Will Kennedy's got at the Sharks, and I think there's better options at fullback at the club already if they wanted to move stuff around. I think if anyone will have to go, you make way with Kennedy,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and you keep those three if you can, and you don't really think much of it. I think any three of them. I don't think Trindle could be a fullback, and I don't know if you'd even try Atkinson because I think he's better next to his half partner. But I'd love to see Hines back in the one, considering the couple of years that he's had a halfback. I just think there's too much pressure on him. I think he lets it get to him. I don't know. It's obviously not going to make an Origin appearance again, so that's pretty much dead and buried.
Yeah.
And the Sharks did well with Trindle 7. As much as it's weird to
Yeah.
see, they did. Like you can't argue it. And Atkinson was a great 5'8". So don't know. They've obviously committed to
Uh,
Trindle, so they have to have some sort of idea what they do. But they have to realize that if it's him and Hines, then something's got to change.
and the rumor post went off, but if there is any interest in, I guess, Pappy, that would be huge for the Sharkies as well.
Yeah.
So many people did come in and like that post. That it went gangbusters. So interesting to see what happens because yeah, Will Kennedy's definitely for mine it's harsh to say weak link, but that's the sort of way I'm trying to go with it, but not
Mm,
say that because he's got his moments where he's a solid football player, no doubt about it. I just don't think they can win a competition with him as your fullback in the modern game. And especially year in, year out. Obviously, it's hard because the last 4 years we say this, it's been Penrith that's won the comp. They've had Dylan Edwards, who's been an absolute gun, but all
mm,
those top teams that are getting to the grand finals and stuff have all had superstar sort of fullbacks who have been
yep.
right there in form. Even people would probably bring up Parramatta, like when we made the grand final, Gutho was in career best form. Like he was one of the best fullbacks in the game at that time.
Mm,
So you've got to be doing that. And I just feel like there's so many games where Kennedy just sort of floats by and it's not going to
yep.
help take any pressure off the halves of Cronulla. Because you look at the Storm, for instance, and I know that never happens, but there's on the slight chance that Hughes and Munster have like off games. You already know Pappy will step up and he'll have some moments and he'll help
Mm,
get him home. Where I just haven't seen a game yet where I remember sitting back going, "That was Will Kennedy's game." Like he stood up in that game and he led the Sharkies to
yep.
that victory. So he's had a couple of good moments. We're probably I'll probably forget about a game and there'll be a Sharks fan that messages me going, "He's done this and that," but just it other players, it stands out straight away. Like you can pick out when Latrell's done it. You can pick out when Teddy's done it. You can pick out when Pappy's done it. You just can't pick out when Will Kennedy's done that. And I think if the Sharkies want to get to that ultimate level, they feel like what they want to get to with the signing of Fanua Blake and stuff, that fullback spot's going to be an interesting one over the next 12 months to see what they do with it because I think
Yep.
Kennedy, this is his last year. And then obviously Pappy's off contract as well and can talk. So whatever happens, it's interesting. It'll be a really
Mm.
cool thing to watch transpire over the next couple of months, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be good to see Pappy there, I guess, wouldn't it? Like get him and Hines in the same team again. That'd be pretty exciting stuff especially for any Sharks supporter. He'd be freaking loving life. But
He's got that surfer
you
look,
can't
nice
make it.
light blue jersey.
Yeah, the baby blue. You can't make it without a good fullback, man. It's such an important position. Like it's the number one. Like you can't just get by with a mediocre fullback thinking you're going to win anything major. It's not going to happen. No one's going to do that ever. And he just doesn't have the X factor about him, unfortunately. Might be good in spurts and, might show up defensively here and there or have a run or two, but, he's not at that upper echelon of fullbacks. It's just, black and white. So they do need to make changes there. And I think they just need to sort of tie it all in. But yeah, Pappy would be a huge acquisition for the Sharks, I think.
Very
Pretty much
much
exactly what
so.
they need. I think
Sharkies
anyone.
fans, calm yourselves down. But yeah, who knows what's going to happen in this crazy, crazy game of ours. It'll be interesting to see again what happens over that space next couple of months. But that's it for tonight's one or today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it once again. Let us know. We'll try and keep you up to date as always with the rumors and signings and things like that. So just keep giving the love on the social media side of things. We'll continue to upload as much as we can. The video side of things, our season reviews by hopefully Friday afternoon, we'll have all of our basically teams finished and done, uploaded onto the page, whether it's YouTube or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Just type your team in if you're interested in listening to our thoughts about how your team went this year, and they should all be up there by then. But Jesse, thanks for coming on again, brother. It was good to just smash this out between the two of us. And Trav, we missed you.
Yeah, sorry, Trav, you missed out on this one, but no, it's good. It's fun just doing the old 1 and 2s again, like we used to early Supercoach days. I suppose we've always, we've sort of upped it a little bit more now, and there's a bit more people. The videos go a bit longer, obviously, when there's 3 and 4, but yeah, no, it's good. It's good fun, man. Always a pleasure.
Bring it on. Huge things still coming, guys. So stick around with us. And as I said, the post will keep coming on the page. Keep following, loving it, and see you next time.